Hello and welcome to this week's Productivity Enhancer. As you can see, we're in Adobe Premiere Pro, and this week we're going to take a look at the audio mixer. Quite often when you're talking to Premiere Pro users, you're talking to people who are more concerned about what's going to be captured by the lens. That's all well and good, but sometimes we find that the audio mixing takes a back seat or becomes kind of an afterthought. But a really good audio mix can really make or break your video. So if we take a look, we have 3 tracks here, all 3 of which were recorded in stereo. So if we play these tracks, you can see that each one of these tracks has 2 individual tracks associated with it. However, we're going to treat each one of these individual tracks as one single track. So before we move anything, we need to take a look at our track names and make sure that we're aware of which audio sources are associated with which track. I've already given each track a name, but if you do need to change them, you can right-click on each track and click Rename right here in the timeline. Or you can go up in the audio mixer, highlight the track name, and just type in the track name you want. But we'll leave everything as it is right now. So on track 1 we have the song, which is the actual music behind the track. Track 2 is the narration, which is the spoken narration. Track 3 is an audio sample of some cityscape sounds, and that's just to create a little ambiance. And track 4 is blank, as you can see down here. So even though all of these tracks were recorded as a stereo track individually, we're going to treat each one as its own individual track and create a stereo array based on the 3 tracks that we have. To do that, you see we have a little pan dial. We can pan to the left or to the right, and that'll change the amount of sound that comes out of either the left or the right speakers. So by shifting this dial over to the left, that's going to make the song track come out of the left speakers. By shifting the narration over to the right, and it's a good idea to try to get them pretty equal at this point, now the narration will come mostly out of the right speaker. And finally, for this little bit of city ambiance noise, we can put it all the way to the right, and that will come purely out of the right speaker. So you won't be able to tell a difference on this tutorial. However, when you have your headphones on or your workstation is hooked up to a nice set of stereo speakers, then you'll definitely be able to hear the difference. So setting up a nice stereo array is that simple. You can always change the amount of sound that you want sent to each speaker by fiddling these dials to get it where you want it. It's not an exact science, and every project is going to have different requirements. So that will be left up to personal preference. So now once our stereo array is set, we can go ahead and play this and take a look at our levels. So you can see that our narration is peaking out a little bit. So we can change that by dragging down the slider just a little bit. However, if you do that, then you might have to adjust your other audio tracks, because now chances are good that the song track is going to be obscuring the narration. So that's probably going to have to be brought down a little bit too. So let's just go ahead and drag that down and give that a shot. So we're still getting a few peaks here, so we're going to have to bring this track down a little bit more. However, I think the song track was a little quiet, so we can bring that up. And let's go ahead and replay that and see what we've got. So that sounds pretty good. We can hear all of the words in there in the narration track, yet the song track isn't obscuring it. So we can live with those levels for now. We do have a few more tools in the audio mixer that fall under the category of workflow tools, so we'll take a look at those right now. Let's play this track from the beginning. And now if we right click, you can see that we have a whole set of things that we can change. Right now you can see that it's set to static peaks, which means that these peaks are going to stay for the entire duration of the track. If we change it to dynamic peaks, then that'll change it so these peaks stay for a few seconds, but then they disappear to accommodate for a new peak. So I prefer to have it on static peaks, that way we can see the peak throughout the entirety of the track. You can also see that Show Valleys is selected. We can clear that, and that'll take away our valleys, and it'll just show the peaks. However, I think showing the valleys is always a good idea, because that way you can tell the dynamic range that you're working with and make small tweaks based on that. Also, by right-clicking in any of these tracks, you can show a color gradient, and this is just a pure image preference. Right now I have the show color gradient on, so if we turn it off, you can see that the volume levels now are just a flat color green with this color of yellow when it goes up into the higher dynamic frequencies. So as I said, I like to have the show color gradient selected, and that way it just makes it a little easier to look at. At any point, you can always reset the indicators, and that'll just make it so your peaks are reset and your valleys are also reset. So let's have our valleys shown on there again. And those controls will be left up to you, what you prefer in your workflow. All of these tools can be changed for each individual track, or they can all be applied to the master track as well by right-clicking on the master track and selecting from the same exact options. Now, if we take a look above each individual track, you can see these letters, MSR. And each one has a very specific function. The M is mute. The S is solo, meaning that you'll hear just that track. And the record allows you to record a brand new track. Now, if you are going to record a brand new track, you're going to have some sort of recording device enabled. If you really don't care about audio quality and you just need to record something, then you can always use the microphone built into your computer. However, it's always recommended to use an external microphone. Right now, I'm using a very basic Sony stereo mic plugged into my microphone jack. All of those preferences are under Edit, Preference, Audio Hardware, and that allows you to change those audio devices right here. We're just going to cancel this and go with what we've got. So let's drag this back and just take a look at each individual function, even though they're fairly self-explanatory. So first of all, we have the mute, which mutes that track. We also have the solo, which allows you to hear just that one track. And while it's playing, can't hit the record button because it is grayed out. However, once the sequence is stopped, I'll move over to track 4 here, which is blank, hit the record button, and if I drag our slider over, hit this record button, then the next time we hit play, it'll record everything coming through this microphone. So if we go back and hit play, then we will record everything that I'm saying and it will show up on a brand new track. And I'll play it back for you. So that's how you use the record function. It's a very basic way to get narration into an audio track that you're working with. So there's obviously many more functions and tools that we can play with in audio, but this is a good way to set up a basic mix. If you need to raise or lower volume within an individual track, you can do that by putting keyframes wherever you want the volume to rise and fall. And that's as easy as selecting the track and putting a keyframe wherever you want the volume to rise, and you can put another keyframe a little further down the line, and then you can raise or lower that keyframe to whatever level you want. Using the audio mixer in Premiere Pro or any editing software is going to take tons of tweaking, and it will always come down to personal preference. However, hopefully this has shown you a few different ways to use the audio mixer, so the next time you go to edit your video, you can make sure that the audio edit is just as high quality as the video edit. So thanks for watching this week's Productivity Enhancer. Until next week.